How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another live stream from the Men of Now channel. I'll be solo running the show today, but your host today, Renegade Wingman, one of our founding admins for the Men of Now community. So, for those of you guys that are in it, always glad to see you guys here. For those of you guys that haven't quite joined it yet, be sure to check us out. A lot of really great, awesome things are happening, and a lot of great, awesome things to come. But for today, I wanted to talk on a topic that a lot of people have been feeling kind of over the last couple of years. But also, no matter where you are on the economic spectrum, you always have your kind of ups and your downs, and your moments where you're winning, and then other moments where you're just like, oh man, nothing just seems like it can go right, and just I can't buy a win if I had any money, but I don't have any in the bank or whatever the situation might be. So, really want to talk on the topic for how to avoid broke thinking when you're broke. And this is definitely something that's going to be for you guys that are just up and coming. Because again, we all start from somewhere. And as a very, very wise billionaire once said, there's only really two ways to get rich or to get wealthy, and that is A, you come from a rich family, or B, a rich family comes from you. And so most people are going to fall into that second category where the rich family is going to need to come from them, just because, again, unfortunately, not a lot of us, are born into that position where we've got a lot of things taken care of. But also at the same time, it's actually a good thing because it gives you a lot of that drive, that hunger, that push, and that real desire to go forward and really achieve. But also, you get really innovative, and your problem solving skills have get very sharpened and refined throughout that process. So the big things that I want to talk about and address, though, is again really talking about your thinking, because the largest problem with being broke, and the large reason why a lot of people are broke and they stay broke, is because of their mindsets and the sort of thinking and behaviors that keep them trapped in that same loop. So one of the biggest things to really, really wrap your head around, really think about, when you're broke, is you want to think about that your situation. It's a temporary situation, right? So if you really think about it, right, break down and write down most problems people have in their life, right? It's like I got bills I need to pay or behind on. I need to figure out how I'm going to like afford food, how I'm going to pay for internet, how I'm going to take care of X, Y, and Z. For most people, between a good 70 to 90% of your problems are just one paycheck away, right? Like if I wrote you a check for $1 million tomorrow, that would probably alleviate a lot of your problems that you're facing today. Now it's going to introduce a whole host of other problems, but the current ones that you're dealing with, especially when you're on the broke side of the equation, for most people, it's a simple paycheck away. That is really where a lot of your problems lie. So there's a certain simplicity behind it, because if you understand that, okay, vast majority of problems are only a paycheck or a payday away, well, then how do I get to that, right? How can I get to that payday? The first thing you have to do is you have to understand that, again, your situation, it's temporary, right? So there could be a good breakthrough that happens for you tomorrow, could happen a year from now, could happen further down the line. But again, it's a very, very temporary situation if you believe it's temporary. If you always believe, well, hey, this is the way I was born, this is where it's always going to be, then your mindset is always going to get in the way and prevent you from continuously striving or figuring out better ways to move forward and to create that pathway for yourself to get out of being broke. Now, what's good about being broke is that you learn how to manage and budget very, very well and effectively manage your resources. So then once you start getting a larger influx of resources, that really helps you, you have sharpened management skills. So you can manage those skills a lot better than, say, again, somebody that hasn't, had to deal with this or think about these types of things. So it does give you a certain edge or advantage to it. But the big thing is always remembering that your current situation, again, is not, it's temporary. It's not, hey, you are destined to be this way for the future. You do have a lot of power to really change or influence that situation. The other part that brings up is that when, again, you're thinking about, you know that your problems, right, are only one paycheck away. Well, again, what does that look like? What is that exact number, right? It's like, hey, I'm making $30,000 a year, And if I could, suddenly make, $50,000 a year, that would alleviate a lot of problems for me. So it's like, okay, you need an extra $20,000 to alleviate a lot of your problems. Okay, where is that extra $20,000? Where can it be found? Is there a skill or something, a product, right? A digital product or a skill or service that you can sell, right? In order to make up that difference? Is there a better job out there that, hey, I'm here working this entry level position, but there's a much more senior level position that's available. And with my years of experience, I'd be a good candidate. I should go for that and move up the chain. There's a lot of different pathways and a lot of different avenues into getting where you want to be. And again, take it from me, somebody that's, been homeless twice, have to sleep in a car. And then I've gone from that to like driving cars that cost as much as houses do. Right. So that's always fun too, where you get the benchmark and you can kind of see like where things go. But again, kind of highlighting those personal experiences. It's not to, say, oh, poor me, or on the other side of the coin, like say, oh my gosh, look at how awesome I am. Again, I'm don't consider myself nothing inherently magical or all that special or whatnot. In reality, it's just okay. I see a practical problem. There's got to be a practical solution to it. And so these are some of the things that I looked at that also helped me along throughout my journey from going from broke to being very well off. And then of course in times where you take certain hits or certain losses, then it's like, man, you really feel broke, but in reality it's like, no, you'll be okay. But again, it's always relative. The scales adjust, right? Because for some people it's like, man, if I could just make $100,000 a year, that would radically change my life. And for other people it's like, man, if I make $100,000 a year, I've lost so much money, I'm so poor. you know so it just really, there's people all over the different sides of the spectrum. But again, the big thing is you always want to avoid that sort of broke thinking or that broke mindset, when you're actually broke or when you're feeling some type of economic stress on yourself. So another thing that you want to really look at and focus on is you want to avoid bad habits that a lot of broke people have. And so a lot of those bad habits include impulsive buying. And again, there's nothing wrong with an impulsive buy every now and again, especially if it's like, hey, you've had like a little bit of a bit of a rough patch or something like that. All right, cool. You want to, treat yourself to, I don't know, a sushi dinner, or Starbucks coffee, right? Or something like that. Or you want to get extra guac, right? Just because, hey, we all have those like really rough days, and self-care is definitely very, very important. But a lot of broke people really, they don't know how to moderate those impulse buys. So they're constantly in that kind of state of depression. So they want to get a quick dopamine hit. So they resort to instant gratification. So they're very much like, well, I'm just going to spend more right now just because it's going to temporarily make me feel better. And so you actually find that they've done a lot of studies on this where, people that are actually tend to be more broke, they tend to actually be bigger spenders, right, than people that have money, which sounds counterintuitive, but if you really think about the psychology behind it, right? It's like, well, I'm down, I'm broke, and I'm sad because I'm broke. Well, I'm going to do this impulse buy to make myself feel a little bit better. Okay, great. Well, I'm still broke. My situation hasn't changed, and well, I'm broke anyways, so might as well make another, impulse buy on something else that's going to make me feel a little bit better, right? So it becomes a very, very detrimental feedback loop for yourself. And so that's something that's just not productive or constructive. So again, learning how to manage and mitigate that in moderation, that will help you with making sure that you're avoiding that trap that keeps you broke. And then another thing that you also want to do is you also want to avoid some of the other pitfalls when it comes to like luxury goods or luxury items. That's one of the huge, huge ones because people will often more often than not, they'll spend a lot of money trying to show people and tell people like, hey, like I'm trying to show you that I'm not broke when in reality I actually am. Right. So again, if you like nice things and right, designer clothing, all that other fun stuff, hey, I mean, again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that inherently, right? And if you can afford it to get decked out from head to toe, full Gucci, you want the full Gucci tracksuit, hey, by all means, if you can afford it, please go for it. More power to you. But the key word is, right, is if you can afford it, right? Which means like, hey, you can do it and not think about it. It doesn't, move the needle for you. You're okay. You're not going to be sweating. It's not coming out of something else that you really need. So, because again, I've had friends growing up where they're like always broke, like, hey bro, can I borrow like 20 bucks or can I borrow this? So I can pay this bill or whatever. But then I like notice they always have the newest pair of Jordans whenever they drop. So it's like, all right, you don't, it's not that you don't have the money, you just don't have your priorities in order because you can always get the newest pair of Jordans when they drop. But for some reason, you're always, 20 bucks short when we're trying to go out for dinner or something, or you need, 50 bucks to pay your gas bill or something like that. It's like you have your money there, you just don't have your priorities there. And so again, this kind of impulse spending or this spending on again luxury goods or things that you don't really need, right? Especially like not right now when you have higher priority items, that really is what's keeping you kind of trapped in that sort of that circle or that vicious cycle of like continuing to stay broke because again you're getting something that you want but you don't need, and again you're doing it to try and impress other people when for the most part people really don't care. Now if you right are going for a big job interview and all your suits are old and tattered and just busted up, right? And you just need to go and get a brand new suit that looks really nice and really awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, now that's a proper investment. So always think about, hey, am I investing in things, right, that are going to pay me back in some type of return that will eventually help me level up my money. So that's what you want to do is you want to focus on spending your money in places where it's going to make you more money. So that way you can then, yeah, go out and, treat yourself and do a full complete blowout or whatever, right? Again, I've got friends on all different sides of economic spectrums, right? And so, if you get to a place where hey, you can just go on a random Sunday and drop 15 grand on fully designer custom clothing for yourself, great, by all means, that's amazing. Again, more power to you. But again, if you can do it without it being a drop in the bucket, not a problem. But if you got to do it, if you're going to spend like $1,000 on a pair of Gucci shoes, but then you suddenly find that you don't have $10 to put in your gas tank, well, now you've got a serious problem because your priorities are misplaced because you're investing in things that are actually keeping you broke rather than making the proper investment in things that will pay you back or get you out of that cycle of being broke. And again, you gotta know where your end and ultimate goal is or what your personal number is, right? That'll get you to where it is that you want to be or get you to where you feel like, okay, I got some breathing room. I'm good to go now. But, a large problem that people have is again, they get stuck in this mode of thinking where it's just like, well, I'm broke, but, I don't want people to think I'm broke. So, you know what? I'm going to go decked out on all the latest, greatest, whatever. Meanwhile, I'm super behind on like, all these different payments. But hey, I'm showing the world that like I'm one way, but in reality, behind the scenes, everything's falling apart. It's just not a sustainable model. And eventually it does catch up with you. So that's something that you really want to keep in the forefront of your mind. And then you also again want to make sure that you can moderate sort of that impulsive spending that you may be doing because again there's a psychology, there is retail psychology, it is an actual real thing, a real field, and they spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year trying to figure out how they can hack your psychology for their benefit, right, in order to market to you but also in order to get you to part with your hard-earned dollars so they can take it and turn it into profits for themselves. Because again, if you can afford it, great, by all means, like go for it. But that's the operative word, right? Can you afford it? Because if you can't, hey, there's nothing wrong and there's no shame in just being like, hey, I really want this. I can't afford it right now. So you know what? I got to focus on something else that's better and a higher priority because it's going to be put you in a much better position and it's going to be much sweeter too when it's like one day you're just like, man, I remember I used to look at this and think, man, like if only I could afford this one day to now it's like, okay, great. Becomes a part of my day-to-day reality. That's such a very satisfying feeling when you got everything covered on the home front, and then you can really indulge and splurge like in the way that you always wanted to, uh, without right like theoretically ruining your life or your finances. All right, gonna take a look at some of the comments here. We got D'Angelo in here. What's up, D'Angelo? See, the people you're connected to plays a big role in keeping a certain lifestyle. Yep, alive and living. Yeah, meeting expectations. Yeah, 100%. And that's a really good insight there, D'Angelo. Another thing to think about too when you're talking about the mentality behind being broke, right? Is that, if you are broke, right, and you're constantly just hanging around broke people, then that you can get sucked into that mentality as well. And it's real easy to get caught up in that, right? Birds of a feather. For me, fortunately, my outlet, I just loved cars. I was always a huge car guy. I mean, yeah, ever since I was like a little kid and just like had little Hot Wheels, and first time seeing like, a Lamborghini in real life, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't no clue what this thing is, but I want that. I want to be a part of it. For me, that was kind of my outlet. And yeah, I was like, it didn't have, $2 to my name or anything like that. But what I would do was, however I could, whether I had to beg my parents to go take me, or if once I got in college, I could start going on my own. I just go to car shows, and then I would meet and befriend a lot of guys that had all these supercars. So it's like, hey, I don't have $2 to my name, but I'm meeting, talking, and hanging out with guys that are driving around in cars that cost more than houses. I might be able to learn some things from them or get some different perspective from them. So that was really, really super beneficial and super helpful. And I'm always super grateful for all the friends I made in the car community and some of the mentors I got out of there. That also kind of kept me like really focused on, okay, like this is where I know I want to go and kind of the pathway I want to be on. But also the big thing I learned from that and really had my eyes open to was there was a multitude of different pathways to get into that level of financial success that you want. Some guys were in visual effects, some guys had their own businesses, some guys were lawyers, some guys were doctors, other guys were serial entrepreneurs that constantly work in the tech space, other guys were coaches, right? So there's a whole multitude of different ways and different avenues to get to where it is that you want to be. But the biggest thing also too to understand is that there really is no such true thing as like a get rich quick thing. That's another habit that a lot of broke people have is they tend to think that hey, there's going to be like a quick easy get rich like scheme that's going to get me where I want to be. Well, on the one hand, you may do something like win the lotto, right, which is a super rare occurrence. But again, when they say like over 90% of lotto owner or lotto winners, right, they go broke within the first 3 years of winning their money. Why is that? Right, quick come, quick go, and they don't have the discipline that they learned and acquired over the course of building that wealth in order to actually maintain it, right? So again, right, that's where a lot of professional athletes, right, they get into trouble too because guys see this thing like, yeah, so and so signed this contract and he's making $10 million a year. Yeah, $10 million a year is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money if your lifestyle is $12 million a year. That means every year you're negative $2 million in the hole. And well, guess what? I've met guys that have lived like that really quickly had to realize they had to turn their ship around. Otherwise, they were really, really going to be in for it. Because again, you can have whatever number of money that you can put on, there's always a way to lose it. There's always a way to live beyond it too. So again, you can make $1 million a year, but if your lifestyle is $1.5 million a year, you're $500,000 in the hole every single year. So that's another thing that people really need to understand when it comes to their mindset. And I get it. When you're broke, it's tough. Sometimes when you don't have money coming in, every dollar you spend feels like you're spending $100, right? So you go out, spend $100, and it's just like, gosh, it feels like you spent $1,000 that night, right? So again, you want to make sure that you realize that your situation is temporary. It can be changed, but also that very likely there is, you're just a payday away from a lot of alleviation, but how can you work and get towards that payday? What different avenues can you pursue? And that's also too where it's helpful to go again, leverage people that are doing much better than yourself. That's what I did, right? I went out and talked to guys that again were making loads of money. I was very fortunate where I've met quite a few billionaires in my life, but also met lots of guys worth over hundreds of millions of dollars. But again, the insight and perspective that I gained from them, that was more invaluable to me than anything else outside of the friendship. Just because again, they really got my mind like thinking beyond the like when you're broke, you're kind of in survival mode and all you can look at is what's directly in front of you. But being able to again like see that longer term picture or that bigger picture and that bigger vision out there and start to even if it's small, just make small investments into things that are going to pay you more over the long run rather than looking for, all right, what's a kind of quick scam that I can pull or super quick fix that, I can try and do to try and get out of this like overnight. Because again, with a lot of people, it's like, you know, you may be complaining about like, oh, I'm broke, I'm this, that, the other, but it's like, all right, cool. I can give you 100 grand tomorrow and it probably ruin your life, right? Because again, you just go hog wild with it. You wouldn't be able to maintain it, lose it all, get way in over your head on something. So for a lot of people, just getting a sudden cash dump would actually be far worse than just being broke. Because at least when they're being broke, it kind of mitigates the damage and forces them to be focused on certain things. But then they get a certain cash dump, and then they just kind of like go a little bit crazy, and the lack of discipline could kill them right there. So for a lot of people, be careful what they wish for. Be careful what you wish for, as they say. Like getting that actual cash that you think is going to be helpful for you may actually like do you a lot more harm if you haven't put a lot of worked on the skill sets in order to maintain discipline over maintaining it, growing it, and keeping it. See, we got a couple more chats here. We're gonna bring them on here. Kevin Lewis says you're the average of 5 people in your inner circle. That's 100%. 100%. You keep hanging around with, 5 dedicated hardcore, billionaires that are on their business, guarantee you you'll be the sixth. You know, if you hang around a bunch of people like 5 guys that are just they want to do absolutely nothing but just, get drunk every single day and then just lay around and have no ambitions and no goals, guess what? You'll be person number 6, right? So you got to change your circle, and then you might wind up changing up your motivation as well as your habits. Let's see. D'Angelo, being broke is just a lack of aim and purpose, in all honesty. My old music teacher used to tell me that you can make money in any field, just have to find the best way to maximize that path. Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. There's definitely a lot of truth to that, especially with what your music teacher told you. It's like, yeah, there's any field that you can think of, you can make money in. You really have to figure out, what value you can provide, as well as what ways in which you can extract that value. And again, for everything, right? There's a lot of different things that aren't necessarily the most sexy or the most glamorous, but they make a lot of money. And that's where people sometimes, they always want to be in the spotlight, but they don't realize, like, oh, hey, I want to be a musician. Okay, great, that's awesome. But there's a lot of people that need songwriters, composers, auditors, audio engineers, like all the other support now infrastructure for musicians, right? That could actually be very lucrative for you, if you pursue that path and get really good at that. Which again, the big thing is with any field or any profession or any dream scenario, you can always buy your way into it, right? So I had a very good friend of mine who he was always passionate about film and movies, but he knew that if he went and tried to work as like a DP or like an actor or something like that, he would just wind up waiting tables in LA and would just be running around all over the place, barely making minimum wage and not really be able to do anything. But he was super smart on the technology side. So wound up working with a software company in the early .com days, made a bunch of money when they exited on that, and then now he funds his own production studio because guess what? He has his own funds he can pursue and buy into his own passion. So don't think that just because, right, you have one passion in there that, you have to just go straight line for it. You can always buy your way into that passion that you want, whatever it is. And, another great example of that would be, Lady Gaga. What most people don't know is that Lady Gaga for years was a songwriter, producer, and composer for a lot of people behind the scenes. She was doing so much stuff behind the scenes, and then was doing so well at that that she will wound up breaking out and working on her own creative projects and her own creative ventures. So again, there's a lot of different avenues in which you can do and execute in order to get to where you want to be. And there's also a lot of other support roles in there that, yeah, they may not be sexy, they may not be glamorous, but guess what? They get dollars coming in and they get dollars flowing. So you'll be able to buy your way into whatever dream that it is that you want, that you have. So thanks for that great comment, D'Angelo. Let's see. All right. What up, Chris? Thank you very much. Always good to see you. Always good to have you here. Uh, but yeah, so kind of going back to Kevin's point here, kind of what's again important, around, yeah, this topic here. I think this is one of the really big important ones, right? Where again, you have to be around people that are constantly moving in the same direction as you, or at least have the same goals and ambition, if not bigger goals and ambitions than you do. So that way you get caught in the tide, right? So yeah, it may be a little bit difficult, maybe a little bit tricky, but also at the same time, anything that's truly worthwhile is never easy. So, the excuse of, well, it's hard, or I don't know, like what we live in the information age where ignorance now is a choice. there's literally a pocket device that can answer any question that you want within milliseconds, right? So to say, well, I don't know something, that you're just choosing not to know at this point because the world's catalog knowledge is available at your fingertips and is a resource for you available. So being able to put yourself out there, but also being able to again change up your circle, that's a super important thing. And that's where I'll kind of go into our shameless plug here, where we have our Men of Now community, and that's really what we've got. Is we've got a lot of guys here that are really focused and really on their mission on trying to figure out ways in which they can level up. And again, we've got guys that are on different sides of the economic spectrum. So we have guys that are just starting out, and then we've got other guys that are been very well established, but they're trying to figure out, okay, what's next? What's that next level? Because believe it or not, this might be hard when you're broke, but you get to a certain point where it's like, okay, now I need to figure out like what do I do beyond money, right? Because there are other bigger, more fulfilling things out there in life. But again, money is a very key part of that, which can help facilitate all of those things and open a lot of doors for you. So, if you're interested in joining some like-minded individuals that are very, very focused on leveling up and getting the best out of this life, then hit us up in the Men of Now. Please feel free to check us out. And again, we've got quite a few members, but go on our site. And again, if you ever want to schedule a time with any one of us on the admin side, just to talk a little bit more about it, always more than happy to talk about it. But really, it's a group for guys, and it's very, very member led. So it's like, hey, what is your action plan on figuring out where it is you want to go and how you want to get there, and what resources do you need that we can help you provide in order to get there. Because we don't want to be those guys that are like, hey, come into our group, and then here's a sharpened stick, a loincloth, and well, there's the top of the mountain. We won't tell you anything about how to get there, but good luck. We'll see you there, right? Then we fly out from a helicopter to the top. We're very active, invested in like, hey, what do you need, right? We have one guy in there that was looking to do a bit of a career transition. So we had a couple of guys that are very, very good on the sales side. We're giving him some good tips and some good coaching on like, hey, if you're interested in like pursuing a career in sales and really leveling up and transitioning on this front, here's what you need to do to be like more effective, and also here's how you need to present yourself. So that way, even though you don't have a lot of experience, you come off as someone who's got a natural talent for this that people can then invest in and then really, really be able to help, bump you up. So, that's where, again, we really are focused on the personal development side where, we really want to see people win. That's our big thing. We want to see people win. We want to see them get the best out of this life. And, a lot of us have a lot of knowledge that we want to pass on, but also we also have a lot of things to learn too. Because again, I don't know everything. I wish I did, but I constantly learn a lot of great stuff from my fellow guys in the group, as well as just get new perspective and insights on different things. So, it's always been a very, very good, amazing sort of two-way street. So I think we've definitely, built something really cool here, and we got some really fun announcements and some really cool stuff that we'll be dropping for you guys coming up really soon here in the very near future. Can't give too much away because some of it's classified, but yeah, definitely excited to have it. So, take a moment, check out the page, and again, would love to have you here in our group. So, with that being said, got a bit of a time crunch today, so I have to keep this one at a tight 30 minutes. But if there's anybody else that wants to drop a final comment or final question while I'm here, you've got about 60 seconds to do so. And if not, no worries at all, because again, I just enjoy doing this. And yeah, this will be kind of my slot. So the Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. No, sorry, 9 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Hawaii time. If you're interested, so I will be on hosting the Men of Now show on Thursdays, and then we'll have our other hosts will be having their days of the week as well. So yeah, we're very, very excited for a lot of the cool stuff that we have coming up. But again, want to give a great shout out and thank you to everybody that's coming and stream this, everybody that's watching it currently right now and watching on the replay. And again, if you have any questions, any concerns, or just want to know more about anything, please feel free, hit us up in the Men of Now community. You can reach us on our website, menofnow.us. We were on Instagram. We are on the TikToks. We're kind of everywhere now. So feel free to reach out to us, hit us up. Again, love to learn more about your journey, what you're going through, where you're at. Let's see, got one last question here. Tips on dealing valleys when things get slower in business and keeping a positive attitude. Yeah, that's a very, very good sort of kind of valid question there. And really, I guess the top tips I have when it comes to dealing with those valleys when things get a little bit slower is one, just taking stock and assessing, okay, like where is the slowdown coming from, right? Is it a broader market force? Is it the actual, customer that you're dealing with? Or is it a combination of different factors? So just again, trying to understand all right where that slowdown is. Two, looking at, okay, now that things are a little bit slow, are there other target markets, right, that we've been looking at or thinking about expanding into that we can now make a move or make an expansion effort into, right? Because when things are slowing in the primary industry, maybe now it's time for a slight pivot into an expansion mode where it's like, okay, we can expand here. Or are there potential strategic partners that we can partner up with in order to drive more expansion for ourselves? So those are really kind of the big things. Keeping the positive attitude, that's always a little bit tough. And the way I always look at it is, whenever you have a challenge, you want to be grateful that you're in the position to have that challenge, right? Because there are times where it's just like, man, I wish I had like customers in the door. I wish someone would just, buy my product, right? Or see the value in it. And now, boom, it's like, hey, people, are in the door. They see the value. They see what's going on. But now things are a little bit slower. That's actually a much better position to be in. It's a great problem to have because it's like, hey, I now get to have the problem of, okay, customers are like slowing down a little bit, but I got them, right? Whereas before, just getting them was a huge problem. Excuse me. All right. Well, I think I'm losing my voice here. Hmm. All right. All right. Well, I think I lost my voice. So I'm going to end the stream on that note. Check you guys soon.